Look closely at the screen. Look at the data in front of you. The numbers are completely empty. The stats say 0. The match is officially scheduled for today at 12:10 on center court. If you are a normal tennis fan, you look at this blank scoreboard and you think the battle hasn't started yet. You think the players are just peacefully resting in their hotel rooms waiting for the clock. You think the war only begins when the umpire calls play. You are completely dangerously wrong. The psychological execution has already happened. The actual tennis match today is just a terrifying public formality. Alex Eala has already broken a Grand Slam champion without hitting a single official forehand. The alarms went off in Linz before the sun even came up. The air in Austria is freezing, but inside the heavily guarded player facilities, the temperature is absolutely boiling. A professional tennis tournament is not a friendly, polite gathering. It is a traveling circus of massive egos, crippling anxiety, and millions of dollars on the line. And today, all of that intense, suffocating pressure is violently compressed into one single explosive match. An unwritten war has been declared in the locker room. Let us talk about Jelena Ostapenko. You cannot possibly understand the sheer terror of this matchup without deeply understanding the Latvian hurricane. She is not just a standard professional tennis player. She is a walking, violent, natural disaster. She is a Grand Slam champion. She conquered the French Open by hitting the ball with a level of blind, destructive power that completely broke the mathematics of the sport. She hits her forehand harder than most men on the tour. She hits her backhand like a literal missile, but her true weapon is not her racket. Her absolute best weapon is pure, unfiltered human intimidation. Ostapenko feeds on human fear. She is a veteran predator who smells weakness from the parking lot. She uses her famous, terrifying death stare to completely break young players before the coin toss even happens. She uses her aggressive, arrogant body language to visually shrink the court and make her opponents feel incredibly small. She demands absolute, unquestioned respect from everyone in the building. She yells at umpires. She yells at the crowd. She yells at her own coaching staff. She creates a chaotic, terrifying, toxic environment because she thrives in the absolute mud. She wants you to be scared because when you are scared, your feet stop moving. And when your feet stop moving, she takes your head clean off with a winner. Ostapenko absolutely despises the modern hype machine. She is old school. She hates it when the global media ignores her massive, hard-earned trophies to talk about an unproven teenager. She hates the viral TikToks. She hates the massive custom sponsor deals handed to kids who haven't bled for a decade on the tour. She feels deeply disrespected by the entire tennis establishment. And today, Alex Eala is the physical embodiment of absolutely everything Jelena Ostapenko wants to violently destroy. She walked into the player lounge in Linz this morning with a very dark, very specific mission. She wanted to establish immediate, terrifying dominance. She wanted to let the kid from the Philippines know that center court in Linz is a dark graveyard for hyped rookies. She wanted to end the match right there in the hallway. The whispers currently leaking out of the Linz indoor facility are absolutely insane. These are not rumors. These are eyewitness accounts from terrified coaches and players who were caught in the crossfire. Sources deep inside the tournament say Ostapenko deliberately, specifically booked the practice court directly next to Alex Eala. In a massive sports complex with dozens of empty courts, she chose the exact one right next to her teenage opponent. This was not a scheduling coincidence. It was a highly calculated, deeply aggressive psychological attack. It was a predator marking her territory before the hunt. Ostapenko was reportedly hitting practice balls with a level of violent, terrifying aggression that made the entire building completely stop and stare. The sound of her racket hitting the ball was echoing like a sniper rifle through the indoor facility. She was screaming violently after every single shot. She was glaring directly across the thin green mesh fence. She was pacing the baseline like a caged tiger. She was trying to send a physical, suffocating threat through the cold indoor air. She wanted the teenager to look over, drop her racket in pure fear, and feel absolute, unadulterated panic setting deep into her bones. She wanted Eala to feel like she was locked inside a steel cage with a monster. But Alex Eala did something that completely permanently shattered the Grand Slam champion's reality. Eala did absolutely nothing. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away nervously. She didn't drop her head. She didn't rush over to complain to her coach. According to shocked silent insiders who witnessed the entire terrifying standoff, Eala simply stopped her practice drill. She didn't hurry. She walked calmly, slowly over to her towel. She wiped her face. She took a slow, deliberate sip of water. She turned around and she looked directly through the fence at a screaming, furious Jelena Ostapenko, and the teenager just smiled. It wasn't a friendly, polite smile. It wasn't a nervous, intimidated smirk. It was a cold, heartless, deeply terrifying smile of pure, arrogant confidence. It was the smile of a highly trained assassin who has already memorized the target's exact fatal weaknesses. That single silent smile was a psychological dagger straight to the absolute core of Ostapenko's fragile ego. It told the veteran champion that her cheap, loud intimidation tactics are completely, utterly useless. It told Ostapenko that her screaming is just desperate, pathetic noise to hide her own insecurities. It told the Latvian superstar that the teenager is absolutely not afraid of the dark. It told her that the teenager is the actual monster hiding in the dark. Ostapenko reportedly lost her entire mind right there on the practice court. The smile broke her completely. She violently, repeatedly smashed a customized graphite racket into the metal net post. She shattered it into a dozen jagged pieces. The atmosphere became so incredibly toxic and physically dangerous that the tournament director literally had to step onto the court and physically calm the situation down before someone got hurt. The veteran champion stormed off the court and back to the locker room completely unhinged, screaming uncontrollably. Her coaching team is currently in an absolute, unprecedented state of panic. Imagine being Ostapenko's coach right now. How do you tactically prepare a professional player who has already completely lost the mental war hours before they even put on their match shoes? How do you explain a tactical, calm game plan to a player whose eyes have completely glazed over with blind, uncontrollable rage? You simply cannot. The game plan is completely dead. The tactics are thrown entirely out the window. It is now just a match of pure, chaotic, destructive emotion. This brings us to the terrifying, highly advanced evolution of Eala. We need to deeply examine who this teenager really is. She is no longer just hitting fast forehands and heavy backhands. She is not just a talented kid with a racket. She is playing high-stakes psychological chess with the fragile minds of her veteran opponents. She is weaponizing her own youth. She is weaponizing her perceived innocence. She is taking the massive, bloated egos of Grand Slam champions and violently turning those egos completely against themselves. You have to look at exactly where Eala was built. She was not built in a soft, luxurious country club. She was forged in the absolute blistering fire of the Rafael Nadal Academy in Spain. Rafael Nadal is the ultimate psychological warrior in the entire history of global sports. He teaches his students that the mind is the only weapon that actually matters in the end. He teaches them how to suffer in complete silence. He teaches them how to absorb an opponent's absolute best punch, wipe the blood off their face, and smile right back at them. Eala has absorbed this dark art absolutely perfectly. She carries the insane, crushing weight of millions of passionate fans in the Philippines every single time she steps onto a court. She has the president of her country watching her matches. She has multi-million-dollar corporate sponsors monitoring her every single breath. The pressure sitting permanently on her young shoulders would literally crush a normal human being into dust, but she absolutely thrives in it. She breathes that heavy pressure like it is pure oxygen. So when Jelena Ostapenko tries to intimidate her on a random Tuesday morning in Austria, it means absolutely nothing. It is a pathetic joke to her. Eala knows exactly how Ostapenko plays. Everyone on the professional tour knows the dark, open secret about the Latvian champion. Ostapenko plays her absolute worst, most erratic, self-destructive tennis when she is blinded by furious anger. When she is mad, she completely stops bending her knees, she stops moving her feet, she loses all spatial awareness. She just tries to hit the ball a million miles an hour, and she usually hits it straight into the back fence or the bottom of the net. Eala deliberately lit the match. She casually dropped it into a massive pool of highly flammable gasoline, and now she is just sitting back waiting for the massive explosion to happen live on center court. It is the most brilliant, terrifying psychological trap ever set by a teenager in the history of the sport. Let us break down exactly what is going to happen technically when the clock strikes 12:10 today. They will walk out of that dark, cold concrete tunnel onto the bright indoor court. The Austrian crowd will politely cheer, completely unaware of the violent, boiling hostility brewing just beneath the surface. The television commentators will blindly talk about standard tennis tactics. They will talk about the fast speed of the indoor surface. They will talk about serving percentages and unforced errors, but you will know the dark hidden truth. You will know that the statistics on the television screen are a total lie. You will know that Jelena Ostapenko is walking onto a literal public execution block. She is stepping onto the baseline completely suffocated by an uncontrollable rage, playing against a teenager who has absolute sub-zero ice running through her veins. A completely blank scoreboard is the most dangerous thing in all of sports, because it means the extreme violence is just about to begin. The canvas is completely empty, and the paint is going to be incredibly red. When the umpire finally calls play, Ostapenko is going to step up to the line and try to hit the yellow tennis ball harder than she ever has in her entire life. She will not be aiming strategically for the painted lines. She will be aiming directly for Eala's chest. She will try to blast the teenager completely off the indoor court in the first 5 agonizing minutes just to desperately save her own wounded pride. She wants a first-round brutal knockout. She wants to hit winners so fast that Eala doesn't even have time to swing her racket or react. But this is exactly where the trap violently snaps shut. This is exactly where the psychological horror movie begins for the veteran champion. What happens if Eala absorbs that massive, desperate power? The indoor court is fast, but Eala's anticipation is supernatural. What happens when Ostapenko hits her absolute best, most violent cross-court winner, a shot that would completely destroy 99% of the women on the tour? What happens when the teenager slides across the hard court, stretches her body to the absolute physical limit, returns the ball deep into the corner, and flashes that exact same terrifying, arrogant smile? I will tell you exactly what happens. Ostapenko will mentally implode live on global television. It will be a total, catastrophic, irreversible systems failure. She will feel a level of deep frustration that words cannot even properly describe. She will start hitting the ball wildly into the grandstands. She will start screaming at her terrified coach sitting in the player box. She will violently fight with the umpire over a ball that was clearly 3 feet out. She will completely, utterly self-destruct because her fragile, inflated ego simply cannot handle being mocked and systematically outplayed by the young future of the sport. Ostapenko relies entirely on fear to win tennis matches. When the fear doesn't work, she has absolutely no backup plan. She has no plan B. She has no defensive strategy. She only has blind panic, and Eala knows this better than anyone. Eala is going to use her elite, world-class defensive skills to purposely prolong the rallies. She is going to drag Ostapenko deep into the water where she cannot breathe. She will hit high, heavy topspin balls that bounce right up into Ostapenko's strike zone, practically daring the veteran to hit a winner. It is pure psychological torture. Eala will force the veteran to pull the trigger over and over again, knowing with absolute certainty that the anger will eventually cause the gun to violently backfire. This match is no longer just about advancing to the next round in a tournament in Linz. It is about a massive, violent shift in the entire global hierarchy of professional tennis. The veterans are desperately holding on to their power by a tiny, rapidly fraying thread. They are watching these fearless, highly trained, heavily sponsored teenagers completely invade their territory, and they are absolutely terrified. The old guard is crumbling right before our eyes. If Eala walks onto center court today and violently dismantles a Grand Slam champion without even blinking an eye, it will send a massive, chilling shockwave through the entire WTA locker room. It will be a loud, undeniable, terrifying message to every single veteran on the tour. The message is incredibly simple. Your old trophies do not protect you anymore. Your intimidating stares and loud screams do not work anymore. The new generation is officially here. They are absolutely not afraid of you, and they are coming to take absolutely everything you have ever worked for. And think about the massive corporate executives watching this match from their luxury glass offices right now. Think about the massive global brands like Nike, who invest millions of dollars in these players. They are watching this psychological warfare very, very closely. They see a veteran champion completely losing her mind and smashing rackets on a practice court. And then they see a teenager maintaining absolute terrifying composure under massive hostile fire. Who do you honestly think they want to give the next multi-million-dollar contract to? Who do you think they want to build their entire billion-dollar brand around for the next decade? Every single time Ostapenko screams in blind frustration today, she is literally burning her own legacy and her own financial value. Every single time Eala smiles and hits a calm passing shot, her global stock price goes completely through the absolute roof. Eala is not just playing for meaningless ranking points today, she is playing for a global empire. She is playing to become the undisputed, terrifying face of the next decade of sports. And Jelena Ostapenko is just a very loud, very angry stepping stone on that dark, inevitable path to greatness. The absolute clock is ticking. The stadium is rapidly filling up with fans. The bright arena lights are turning on. The silence before the storm is completely deafening. In just a few minutes, that completely blank scoreboard is going to start violently moving. The zeros are going to turn into points. The points are going to turn into crucial games. And the games are going to turn into a brutal, unforgiving psychological execution broadcast to the entire world. The stage is completely set for a total, absolute massacre. It is the veteran with the incredibly fragile temper going up against the cold-blooded teenage assassin. It is the old-school illusion of loud power against the new-school reality of silent, deadly psychological warfare. It is the screaming, chaotic hurricane crashing directly against the immovable, emotionless concrete wall. Now, I want to hear your absolute, unfiltered voice right now before the very first ball is even hit. Look at the absolute suffocating tension brewing between these two players. Look at exactly what happened on the practice court this morning. Do you think Eala's psychological warfare is an absolute genius master strategy, or did she just violently poke a sleeping bear that is going to wake up and completely destroy her career? Will Jelena Ostapenko find a miraculous way to channel that massive blind rage to destroy the young prodigy, or is Eala going to completely embarrass a Grand Slam champion in straight sets and send her packing to the airport in a total viral meltdown? Is the veteran era of tennis completely dead, or does the proud old guard still have one last violent knockout punch left in them? Drop your most aggressive, completely unfiltered pre-match predictions down in the comments right now. I read every single one of them. The tension is absolutely suffocating, and you absolutely need to be a part of this massive historic moment in tennis history. And if you want the real, raw, unfiltered truth behind the biggest, darkest locker room scandals and psychological breakdowns in the entire sports world, if you want the insane, hidden stories the cowardly mainstream media absolutely refuses to tell you, hit that subscribe button immediately. Turn on those notifications right now. The players are finally walking out of the dark tunnel. The match is about to start, and you will absolutely not believe the massive explosive post-match breakdown we are dropping the exact second this bloodbath is over.